From choking out the most dominant flyweight champion in the history of the UFC to forcing Valentina Shevchenko to make excuses for the loss. This is why fighters are really scared of Alexa Grasso. Just look at what she did to the Bullet. I mean, literally no one expected her to do anything against the longest reigning queen of the flyweights. Alexa was supposed to be nothing more than a feeder fish for Val, but she proved that she belongs in the UFC octagon, and she's here to stay. The Mexican showed the world that Shevchenko was very beatable and executed a flawless game plan to secure the title for herself. Even the most optimistic of pundits, analysts, and bookmakers thought that UFC 285 would belong to the Russian assassin. But man, were they wrong. Grasso surprised everyone with her perseverance and technical ability in the cage to extend her winning streak to 5 fights. But it's gonna come at a cost now. You see, Val was much more intimidating than Alexa, so every flyweight on the roster wants a crack at the newly crowned champ, but they can't just expect to beat her that easily. Grasso is still a young champion, so she has a lot more to learn and even more to show. The Mexican may have 3 losses at the start of her career, but the new contenders can't really look at that and think that they can take her in a fight. You see, guys, Alexa started her career as a strawweight for some reason. It may be because she wanted to use the weight advantage in her favor, or she felt she could do better as a 115-pounder, but that didn't really work out for her. I honestly don't know what her team was thinking by making her fight as a strawweight, because ever since she's moved up, she's a completely different fighter. Don't get me wrong here, guys. Alexa was pretty good back then as well. Her extremely close fights with the veteran Felice Herrig and with the former 2-time champ Carla Esparza are testaments to that, but the grueling weight cuts caused her to be depleted too much, and she just couldn't compete to the best of her abilities. The Mexican looks a lot more at home at flyweight because she moves better than she ever used to and is significantly more powerful than she was as a 115-pounder. Grasso is unbeaten at 125, and I think that speaks way more about her performance here than anything else I could say. Her run so far has been extremely impressive because she has dominated the likes of Ji Yeon Kim, Macy Barber, Joanne Wood, and Viviane Araujo. The Mexican has left no doubt in any of her matches that she deserved to win. She may not always finish her opponents, but she does more than enough to get the nod from the judges, and that's perfectly fine. The UFC hosts some of the best fighters on the planet, so it isn't always easy to knock someone out or submit them. But the scariest thing about Alexa is that she has never once been tested. When you look at her, it seemed like she isn't doing anything special. For the 29-year-old, everything is just basic, but she does that to perfection. The high boxing guard, the bread and butter 1-2 combos, and the defensive grappling are all pretty standard stuff.
As good as advertised, Alexa Grasso.
I know it's a perfect match for both of us.
But that's what sets the champions apart from the rest. Take GSP or Khabib as an example. Their technique wasn't too flashy. They were just masters at their basics. And that's what made them the legends they are today. The Mexican queen is no different from them, and she's always been far too comfortable in her fights. Alexa's striking is some of the best I've seen in the octagon because she really needs no setup for them. She's got a great eye for openings, and the Mexican boxing protege can just let her hands go whenever she sees it. I already told you about her boxing combos. Like, it's nothing fancy, but it's extremely effective, which makes her a constant threat on the feet. Apart from that, she has some amazing kicks as well. Grasso doesn't telegraph whatever she throws. She's got one of the best switch kicks you've ever seen. I mean, you can compare those to Israel Adesanya's kicks, and the best part is that she can throw them everywhere. The Mexican can take someone's head off with those, or just knock the wind out of her opponents with well-placed body kicks. And then there are those devastating leg kicks too. Alexa can chop the legs off anyone who's in front of her in the octagon. And when they're thinking about those low kicks, she can just go to work on their face with her punches. That already makes her a deadly striker, but Grasso's no slouch on the ground either. Her defensive grappling is phenomenal, and it has saved her more than once against those wrestling-heavy styled fighters. Araujo came closest to doing some damage to her on the ground, but Alexa held her own and made sure that she could nullify any threat of submission or ground and pound. The 29-year-old champ kept pulling guard against the Brazilian and controlled Araujo's movements pretty effectively. Then when they were back on their feet, it was completely Alexa's fight. The thing is that fighters can't afford to underestimate her ground game. She may only be a purple belt in a division full of BJJ black belts, but the Mexican queen has shown that she can fend off more experienced grapplers than her. In fact, she managed to submit Wood via rear naked choke in the very first round. Grasso's just too complete of a fighter, and to top it all off, she's got stamina that can last her days. Just look at her fight against Araujo. She went the whole 5 rounds with the Brazilian, engaged in extended grappling exchanges, and still walked in the final round of the match as if it was her first round.
Something's gonna land, something's gonna stand out. Even that little flurry stood out.
Araujo responds right away though, forces the clinch. And now just some
Same was the case against Shevchenko. The former champ looked completely drained by the fourth round, and that played a huge role in that submission as well. Val wasn't as sharp in the championship stages of the fight. On the other hand, Alexa looked like a freshly stoned katana that, combined with her picture-perfect game plan, made sure she grabbed the flyweight crown that night. After the fight, Grasso revealed that she was expecting Val to throw a lot of spinning attacks, so when the bullet spun around for a back fist, the Mexican pounced on her and took Shevchenko's back in one fluid motion. From there, Alexa just had to sink in her hooks and choke the life out of the former champ. Her team may have given her the blueprint to victory, but it was Grasso that executed it flawlessly. Val had no chance, and she couldn't do anything other than tap. Before this match, the Bullet had never been submitted in a very long and illustrious career. But the Mexican queen just made it happen. And now, she just wants to put Val in the ground for good. People might have expected Grasso to take the belt and run away with it, but she's not afraid of going up against the Bullet for the second time. You see, right after the fight, Shevchenko staked her claim on the rematch, and the UFC's gonna give it to her. She was the longest reigning flyweight champ after all. Alexa just can't wait for it though. She even has a venue and date in mind. While talking to Ariel Helwani on the MMA Hour, Grasso said that she wants to fight in Mexico on the day of the Mexican independence on 16th of September. That also happens to fall on a Saturday, so it'll just be perfect for the UFC.
You have to take the opportunities and challenge yourself like this opportunity, and we did great.
Alexa is no fool. She expects the rematch to be tougher than the first fight and describes it as a chess match in the octagon against Val. The Mexican is pretty excited about the match and can't wait to come up with something new to surprise the former champ. The UFC hasn't announced the rematch officially as yet, but everyone knows that's what makes the most sense right now, given how dominant the Bullet has been over the years. That didn't stop her from making excuses for the loss though. You see guys, I wasn't expecting Shevchenko to blame her shortcomings on the ref. She claims that Jason Herzog, the man officiating the match, was biased towards Grasso because he got the fighters back to their feet when Val was about to TKO the Mexican on the ground. No one except for the Bullet thinks that. She wasn't doing anything except holding on to Alexa because the new champ just nullified all of Val's dominance on the ground. What's more is that Val's kind of scared with what the Mexican is proposing for the rematch too. She doesn't want to fight Grasso on her home turf because she said that the judges and the referee there will give Alexa every advantage they can. The truth is that Shevchenko hasn't fought anyone on their backyard, and most of her fights have been on US soil in neutral territory. The thought of facing the first Mexican champ in front of a Mexican crowd is scary to her. As disappointing as it sounds, it's what she has all but admitted herself. So from forcing Valentina Shevchenko to make excuses for the loss, to choking out the most dominant flyweight champion in the history of the UFC, this was why fighters are really scared of Alexa Grasso.